Musicals are incredible in the way that they can teach you so many wonderful things about yourself.
That you didn't even know were there.
Right?
Welcome back everyone to the Dive podcast, where each week we interview professional performing artists as we discuss their stories and dive deeper into learning how to navigate the challenges we face as artists. I'm your host, Taylor Scanlon. Today we're going to be talking about how to find drive and motivation when you're fatigued, how to trust yourself for going on for a cover, and tips on how to find the joy in what you do. With our special guest, Kimberley Hodgson. Kim is currently playing Gigi in Miss Saigon the musical in Australia, and recently was in Mary Poppins the musical, where we both met. Covering the lead role of Mary Poppins as well as Mrs. Corrie, Kim knows a thing or two about covering lead roles and the work that goes into making it through 8 shows a week, again and again. From covering Anna in Frozen, Princess Jasmine in Aladdin, and Anita in West Side Story. I mean, I don't know if there's anything Kim cannot do. And to top that all off, Kim is just one of the most incredible human beings that I've met, as well as hilarious. So get ready as we dive into today's episode. Yay! So thanks, Kim, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's so good to have you here. So, wow, I mean, you've really gone and done it, haven't you?
Yes,
And
I've
still
gone
doing
and
it.
I know. It's
Yeah.
crazy. I don't know how I'm still alive. But
Yeah.
we are.
How does it make you feel, like, hearing
As-
what you've done?
You know what? It's wild
Yeah.
because I guess I've been kind of working in the industry for this my 10th year out of university.
Right.
And so it feels like it's all gone very quickly, but I've aged.
Well, you don't look
I
it.
know, that's very sweet. Inside though,
Inside.
I'm 67 years old.
Right.
But yeah, it's wild to look back and be like, oh, that's right, I did that.
Yeah.
Or like, oh, that's right, I did that. And when you're in the emotion of just like rolling through and just like trying to survive through everything, you have to remind yourself to like stop and be like, oh, that's right.
Yeah.
I like did all of that, or like I accomplished all of that,
Yeah.
or like, things that you don't really take a moment for, and just
Yeah.
like, oh, so it's nice when you hear someone
That's
be like,
so
remember
true.
all those things you did? You're like, yeah, that's right, I did all those things.
It's crazy. It's
Yeah.
so crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
I was talking about this exact same thing with my partner, Alison,
Yeah.
and you don't realize that because the contracts that we get are sometimes 10 months or 5 months or 3 months or 2
Yeah.
weeks. And so you just kind of sometimes see it as that. You're like, oh, another 5 months. But you don't realize that this is going on for years and years and
Yes.
years. And
Yeah.
then, when you have a moment to stop, you're like, oh, gosh, where did that 10 years,
Yes.
odd go,
Absolutely. I think on one show that I did, I celebrated 3 birthdays. So I went in at 23 and I
No
left.
way.
Yeah, I left when I was 26.
Wow.
Wild.
What show was that?
That was Aladdin.
Did you enjoy
That was-
that one?
Yes,
Yeah.
it was hard. It was a long time.
What was the hardest thing about it?
I was in the ensemble for that show, and I covered Princess Jasmine. I was in a pretty heavy dancer track in
Yeah.
that show. Up until that point, I was kind of doing little stints, like shows that just would last for like,
Yeah.
3 months, 4 months. And I do like a couple of contracts a year, but that was my first big main stage commercial
Yeah.
8 show a week for the rest of your life.
A whole nother beast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I was really keen on being able to experience something like that. So
Right.
going into it, I was quite enthusiastic. But the track that I was casting was as a hard track.
Right.
It was a hard track, and I used to just think, I hope I get to go on for my cover this week so I can have a rest because it was so.
Isn't that funny? Sometimes I think if you're an audience member, you're watching the lead, and of course, many leads, it's tiring in itself.
Yeah.
But a lot of the ensemble, when you're supporting the leads,
Yeah.
actually go through it.
Oh.
You're having to physically jump, kick, turn,
Yes.
create the full picture.
Yes.
That, and then you go off and you're tired. And sometimes when you go on
Oh.
for that lead, and a lot of the more leads nowadays, or there is that availability to dance, but a lot of more standing and
Yes,
singing and
yes,
acting
yeah.
and making sure that we get this story across. So
Yeah,
that's so funny.
Yeah, it's a whole different type of exhaustion. Like I definitely think that show for me was one of the most physically challenging
Right.
shows that I have done so far.
Yeah.
And to do it for like over 2.5 years, almost 3 years, was like
That's wild. 3
wild.
birthdays.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, that was really wild. And to like put my body through the exact same thing.
Yeah. Crazy.
That many times a week for that many years. It
Yeah.
was it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard
It's
on
a
your
hard
body,
one.
you know?
Yeah. Well, we'll get more into, your career and the musicals that you've gone through, but I'd really like to just take a moment to, step all the way back, from your studies and, where did it all start for you before, you got into the industry?
So I guess, I mean, it's the old tale of like I was singing and dancing when I was little.
Yeah.
But honestly, it was kind of just for fun for me. I really grew up not knowing what it would be like to have like a profession where I would be a performer and be paid for it. I never really grew up thinking that would be a thing. I loved sport. Like
Did you? Which sport?
Oh my gosh!
know that.
I started off as like a cross country runner.
Really?
Yeah, and
Wow.
I like representing Queensland. It was the first time that I travelled interstate. I was by myself. I think I was like 11 years old, and I did I don't know what it's called, nationals, cross country, whatever. It was in Sydney.
Oh, wow.
And I went and I competed, and it was so. I'm from the Gold Coast, from
Right.
Queensland.
Yeah.
Hot. And we had these little like running outfits on, these little singlets and little bummers. I made it, I think, about 700 meters of this like the multiple kilometer race that I
Right.
was meant to do.
Okay.
And I dropped to the floor and I was like shaking because I was like, this is the worst. I don't know what's going on with my body, but I literally am like, they chucked one of those foil blankets over me. Like it was a full
had a
thing.
full attack.
Yeah, because I was like, it's so cold, I can't do it. And they're like, you're going to finish the race. I was like, are you kidding? Anyway, so that was the end of my cross country.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
But then after that, well, actually growing up, I loved touch football. And I absolutely would, at school
I
sports.
could see you doing
that.
Yeah.
I love it.
In amongst it.
I loved it so much. Me and my best friend, we were like, we'd do every comp that we could do.
Right.
I played rep for touch footy too. I didn't succeed as much as I did with cross country. But honestly, I think if I could have made money being a touch football player, I would have been. I love it so much. Even when I watch people play, I'm like, oh my God, I want to play.
There you go.
So yeah, so I really grew up playing a lot of sports, but also I was a part of a little community group, Filipino Australian community group on the Gold Coast.
Wonderful.
Yay!
Let's go.
And I was a part of that community group since I was like 6 years old. So I would go and I do a lot of like traditional dancing, and I would sing at their events, like multicultural events. Anything that they would have, I would just go and perform at because I would just enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
And then it kind of wasn't really until I got to high school. I was in grade 8, and our first school musical experience that I ever was like a part of was Annie, and I played the title role of Annie. I looked like this little rat kid with this dirty red wig. It was
My gosh.
Very funny. And of course, I was kind of self-taught singer.
Wow.
My mum was a singer growing up.
Okay.
And so she coached me. We could never really afford like singing lessons and all that. And even when I went to singing lessons, like group singing lessons, I was like, I don't like this.
Yeah.
That's not me.
Yeah.
So
How beautiful to have that connection with your mum.
it's really special. I think, my mum was she was a professional singer back in the Philippines, and she would perform at a lot of events.
Yeah.
When she was in college, a lot of the events that she performed at would help fund her tuition, and her aunties when she was a little bit older, she would sing at the restaurant that they would own, and she would, you know, make money that way. But I think she never really was given the opportunity to like pursue that.
Yeah.
And then, coming over here, she kind of left everything behind, and she came over here to marry my dad, and then she was here looking after us three. So it's really like,
Wow.
yeah, so she's kind of, I really, I sometimes think that I'm able to live not only like my own dreams and my own passions in life, but I get to do that for her too, which is kind of nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so sweet.
Yeah.
Amazing. And did you always want to be like a performer? I know you said you loved the sports.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
was it always...
I really, like, I'd go through school, I'd do these musicals, I still didn't know, because I'm like, I really don't know that I can make a job out of this. Like, I don't really know what that picture looks like. I think I didn't see my first professional musical until I was like in grade 12 or 11.
Well, I guess being in the Gold Coast, you wouldn't have a lot of major musicals going there, so you wouldn't have had that exposure.
Very much so, and it's expensive.
Yeah,
like
it's a lot of money.
You know what I mean? I could like we could pay for like our dance lessons and stuff, but like
as a family,
it's so expensive, you know. And so I really didn't experience my first live musical theatre show until I was in like grade 12. I think I saw Wicked, and it was life-changing. I think the overture started, and I had this feeling of like wanting to cry and like vomit, and I was like, my adrenaline was just like through the roof, and I was so excited, and I was like, oh my God, what is this? And I just was like
whatever this
is, and the people that are there doing everything, they get paid to do that. And so that was kind of in my later senior years in high school. And so after that, I did full-time musical theatre course on the Gold Coast for about a year. And then I went to the Conservatorium of Music at Griffith University in Brisbane.
Amazing.
And then, 3 years there with, you know, doing that was really hard. University's hard, but when you do like a drama degree or like music theatre degree, that is like a lot of dedication and hours.
Well, I mean, there was probably that one thing of like learning from your mum, you know, singing, and to going into like a full, you know.
I knew nothing about music theory. Don't worry, I knew nothing. I didn't do any music at school. I didn't know anything about good... I don't even, what is it? Good boys deserve fruit? What's the thing? I graduated from the degree, and I've forgotten it now, because I'm like, that's 10 years ago. I didn't have to remember that anymore.
That's all good.
Literally, I knew nothing, and I went into this tertiary level, like music theory, oral studies. I knew nothing. I didn't know how to do anything. I said, well, how did I get into this course? I'm screwed. I don't know anything. And I literally would just be commuting from the Gold Coast to Brisbane every day with my head in the book, literally studying these really complex books with theory and things that I had no idea about. But I somehow, I don't know, managed to survive. That's
so interesting, mate. I mean, obviously there's a place to learn all of that, but I mean, you find, I don't know if you found this, when you go into the industry, how much you take, you know, from your studies. It's like, you know, there's only so little few bits.
It's funny. It's like all of these years later, I mean, when you first go into into shows, the first show I did was a show called Rolling Thunder Vietnam, and I worked with a lot of old school rockers. Like these are John Farnham's band. Like this Chong Lim, who was our music director, they're all like old school rockers, and they run on a whole other different... That's a whole other thing. And so when you come out of a 3-year degree and you're like, I know how to do things now, and you're like, oh, I don't know anything. So it's really interesting, the things that you learn when you're at uni and then when you're in the industries can be very different, but also can be very helpful. I have a great discipline when I am at work, and I think a lot of that comes from where I studied and how I was taught when I was at uni. So there are things that you do, you know, you're like, oh, thank God I don't have to think about that. Because that's my
That's so true. You get put definitely into scenarios and situations, or even into routines that you'd probably never ever do for 8 shows a week.
Oh, yeah.
But then when you go into the industry and you are doing, you know, something that's not as hectic, you're actually able to deal with it a little bit more, because you're like, oh, well, if I've done that, you know, I can do,
oh, yeah.
do this.
You can do, yeah, absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely, yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And so that's awesome. So you studied, or you went from singing with your mum to then studying to then meeting some rock gods.
I know, my gosh,
to then just getting into the industry. I saw here that you also got, back in 2015, an award, or nominated for an award, Matilda Award. That's amazing.
Yeah,
oh, good.
That was fun. Yeah, I did. It was Into the Woods, and I played the role of Little Red. One of the funnest roles I think I've ever done, because I just went and did whatever the hell I wanted. It was so fun. She's just this little naughty rat girl that used to just very me, and I was like demanding to eat on stage, and I was like, I need bread that I can eat every show, and I want to be able to and I want to be eating whilst I sing some of my stuff. And they were my like two like things. I said, well, that actually has to be the case.
I could see you doing that, and I could imagine you just being so serious as a child, like, well, I need bread.
Well, I need bread.
Well, I need bread now, and I need it. But
oh
like fully in it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Chaotic.
I love that.
Chaotic.
Great. So why don't we dive a little bit into some of the topics that we're going to talk about. Going first with how to find drive and motivation when you're tired. How has it been for you, or what tools and techniques do you find help you the best to get you through and find that drive and motivation time after again?
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely right in the way that depending on the show that you're in, or depending on what you're currently doing, and that might even be working a full-time job, trying to do classes to maintain so that you can book an extra, you know, there's like, in life as a performer, I think it never gets easier. And it really, whether you're in a job or you're not in a job, it really takes a lot of time and soul to maintain and to like get through life, to manage that. I think physical exhaustion when you're in an 8-show week, I think there's a lot more things that you can do practically to look after yourself and your body. And I feel like I have learned like good food, good hydration, good conditioning, all of these wonderful things that I think are now also readily available, you know, online, and things to kind of educate yourself to figure out what works for me, what doesn't work for me, and to not have to spend a whole, you know, lot of money that we kind of don't really have to try and manage ourselves. Although in saying that, I get massaged every week, and that's investment that I think is well worth it.
Would you say that, you know, from doing the 8 shows, I think when you first start, you know, you're wanting to be the best you can, you're wanting to perform at such a high level. But I find that when you start the industry, you're there and you kind of get told, your body tells you like to stop. And then through that experience, you get, you know, learn the tools to be like, okay, how can I do it at 70% or at a level where I can still perform, but, you know, protect the body and be okay with it.
I think definitely sustainability is something that we don't really get taught.
No.
And I think for everyone, that looks differently for everyone. I feel like with physical tracks, it's a definite, like, you need to find that balance, because the thing is, you're gonna have to sustain your body so that you can last however long the contract is. Let alone just your weekly workload. And then to just be able to like do all of that and then function in life. You know, there's been times where in shows I literally would just want to go home and sleep because I had no more energy to do anything. And sometimes, I mean, that's kind of sometimes what it's like.
Sometimes that's the gig.
And and which is hard, I guess, when you're young and you want to be social, and it's this incredible like community, like touring community thing that you wouldn't otherwise
become
experience.
A part of.
You want to be experiencing that, but in the long run, I'm always I'm always the person that would be like, you know, my work kind of comes first.
Yeah.
And how do I manage myself so that I can present the best work? Because
sure.
I've worked so hard to.
And you can definitely see that. I mean, you can see it with you and, you know, the dedication. And I think what happens when you do invest and you do take the time to go, okay, this is my priority. Like you said, when you're younger, you do want to socialize, you want to be a part of everything. But, you know, being comfortable with saying no to a few things to make sure that you're, you know, being at your best is actually okay.
Yeah.
And I think people, you know, maybe need to hear that
Yes.
they don't have to be around everyone all the time to, especially, you know, it's exciting, do the things, but make sure that, you know, you're putting yourself at the front end to make sure that you're able to go on and, you know, be the best that you can be. I think you said before, the learning, you know, never ends.
Yeah.
But it doesn't. It's just like you just keep, you know.
Yeah. It's definitely continuous. You never, like, different from everything else I've done. Doing Miss Saigon, I think, has taught me the most. And I'm already 10 years into my, you know, into my career, very early on, but still, it's a lot to be like, that's a lot of time to now only realize that to manage myself for this particular show, I need to do all of these things.
Yeah.
And that, I guess, from a contrast from being in a physical track to now playing a lead role where physically I'm not as challenged, but emotionally and mentally I'm the most challenged that I've ever been.
Right.
And to be able to present work that is as sensitive as it is every single show, sometimes multiple times a day, is actually more exhausting than anything, any physically challenging show I've ever done. This is more exhausting.
Right.
And because of that, I feel, for me, I've learnt that you lose a bit of your own spirit because you're invested in...
Well, you're giving so much.
Yeah.
So that, you know, the receiving end, you know, takes maybe a back end for the, you know, just the moment.
Yes.
But yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely something that I, for myself, have been like, okay, I understand that, like, this job is requiring this of me, and sometimes that might outbalance my spirit in everyday life. I mean, you know me, like, I would literally be the one that is doing a routine out the back when everyone's doing their thing on stage,
coming into the ensemble room and
just having a good old time. And I feel like, I mean, that's me as a person. I think that is my spirit, like, through and through. And I feel like sometimes, you know, even that, I'm like, I actually don't have any energy.
Well, that's it. And I mean, I think that will go well with the other topic that we were going to discuss about how to find the joy. I think, I mean, you can agree with me or, you know, add on to that when you're going and you're getting exhausted, sometimes you just got to lean in. You just got to let go. Instead of going the other way and being like, I need to tap out, just lean in and, you know, look at your fellow colleagues who are also doing the 8 shows with you and just, you know, have a bit of a laugh and be like, you know what, I feel like my limbs are falling apart, but I'm getting on and we're going to have a great time.
Yeah, it's absolutely that. I mean, if you have to lean in. At no point you can, like, you have to go. Yeah. Because also that's when, like, injury happens. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's when injury happens. That's when things happen. That's when, but you got to commit, right?
I would love to have a Netflix series that documents Sunday shows.
Oh, Saturday
night and Sunday. Because everyone goes from, you know, focused in, you know, the start of the week, getting it to Sunday, just coming, it's like everyone has had a psychedelic or something. Yes. Wearing different wigs, different hats, like coming out like a crab. I don't know. It's just the weirdest environment, but the best.
The best. Because you know what? If you can have a little bit of something that just cheers you up for that day, just to get you through, you're like, that's it. That's the one.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Now, I definitely want to talk about Miss Saigon. You're playing Gigi. Has this always been, you know, a role? Have you been in the show before?
I did in university, my very final year. We did like a university production of it, and I played Kim. Yeah. And 10 years later, I'm now in the show. This show has been like a dream.
Of course.
Show. Yeah. For me. When I knew that this show existed, I got into uni. I still didn't know it existed. And then when I was at uni, I had all these singing teachers and people being like, oh, you got to sing this material for Miss Saigon. I was like, what is this? And I was like, oh.
This is
and
lovely.
then vocally, kind of actually how I used to sing when I was younger. I was like
Right.
this big, belty sound that I would just like, that's what I like
Right.
grew up doing.
Right.
Pop version of that. But
Yes.
this, you know what I mean? Like the music, I was just like,
wonderful.
oh, I love, my voice loves
Yeah.
singing this.
Yeah.
And I have not done a show that has, you know, given me the opportunity to sing material like this and to be telling stories like this.
It's amazing.
It's definitely a huge dream come true, and I knew it was going to be hard.
Yeah.
But it is like, it's
another beast
you know
in
what?
itself.
It is like nothing else that I ever thought I would ever experience in my entire life.
Well, I mean,
In all the most wonderful ways.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
so incredibly challenging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had the privilege to watch it twice now and see you in it, which has been awesome. Always giving, standing ovation at the end, loving it. And I love that you've picked up on I think everyone taps into the physical exertion of different shows, but rarely do we get to talk about the mental and the emotional. And I mean, that show is just heart-wrenching.
Yeah.
And you have to lean into that or else it just doesn't work.
Yes.
So how do you find, how do you prepare yourself or get yourself to a place where you can emotionally exert, each show? And
You know what? And this is something, honestly, and I'm going to be really like transparent here because that's the purpose of this. I see a psychologist. I talk a lot to people, and I now try and listen to my like soul and my like mind and say, what do you need today? Do you need food? Do you need good music? You know what? I've never actually really, I love listening to music, but I've never like needed music like I have needed whilst I've been doing this show. Yeah. And that's like music to like get me
Rev
ready
up,
for the
let's
show.
Go. Yeah.
And to wind down and just be like, I just need to like
back
disassociate. I need to like come back. And I, firstly, speaking to someone, having a psychologist that has been able to like flag things for me and be like, when you do this in the show, that's triggering for you because like as a child, this happened, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And I think for actors who have to expose a part of their soul and their like wounded child on stage every single day, sometimes multiple times a day, can really push you like down, really, really push you down. And I feel like, thankfully, there's so much more like talk and positivity about mental health and like seeking advice and seeking professional help and all of these wonderful things that are around. But I really just, I feel like this show has really made it apparent that it's actually, it's necessary.
Yeah.
We're really lucky that the company actually prior to, in the first week of our rehearsals, we had lovely Will Centurion come in and do a wellness workshop with us. And
That's incredible.
Yeah. And I feel like companies are now a little bit more aware, especially if you're dealing with content that's triggering and that's heavy.
Yeah.
I feel like companies are a little bit more aware now and to make sure that there are tools available, but that doesn't say, there's a lot of work that we need to do as actors to make sure that that's implemented, to make sure, if that doesn't work for us, what else works for us, and how can we cope, because it can really take a toll on, ourselves, and it can trickle into like your everyday life and affect your relationships and your like family relationships and like it's hard.
Yeah.
But I really think now that we're like, months in, and I'm feeling like I'm kind of finding where I need to be and where that sits. And then when I feel like I've got energy, then I need to let like my spirit like just be the silly self that it is. Just to remind myself, oh yeah, I'm actually not that person in real life that I'm playing multiple times a week, and I'm spending hours in the mindset of who this character is. I'm actually Kimberley Hodgson, who is like silly fun, likes to run around and be, a little bit naughty. Yeah. So it definitely has really taught me a lot as an adult. And I'm 31.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Musicals are incredible in the way that they can teach you so many wonderful things about yourself
that you didn't even know were there.
Right?
Yeah.
And if you were, I don't know, I also work in pharmacy, but I have not worked in, another normal job for a really, really long amount of time to know whether that, there are other things in life that I'm sure would teach you, but this job forces you.
Well, it literally puts you into the light.
Yes.
It puts all your things into the light.
Yes.
And when you, especially with tough topics, you're having to put yourself in that place.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can be triggering for
Yeah,
sure. But
yeah.
I love that you've mentioned that there's, steps going in place now, but it's so beautiful that that's happening, because where I was trained, you don't even question, you just get on, you do it,
Yep.
and you don't even think twice about it. So it's great that there's now things coming up where we're like, actually, you're human, we're going to be doing this, you're going to be giving your heart and soul and putting your physical body and mental body and emotional body into this space. Science tells us that our bodies and brains don't know the difference between reality and what's happening there.
Yes.
That's why we get affected when we watch movies. We feel like we're there and we can feel the emotion. So when we're replaying that for not only 8 shows a week, but 12 months or something at a time,
Yeah.
you're constantly putting your body, into nearly 3 hours of a show.
Yeah.
Constantly
in fight or flight.
Fight or flight.
Yeah.
So it's definitely, even more important now to, like you said, have those tools and speak to people. And, I love what you mentioned about you taking a moment. Maybe you can mention again, like what you do, like just taking a moment, what do I need? It can just be that simple question, can't it? It doesn't have to be this expensive workshop crazy thing.
No.
Just trusting in yourself and having that moment where you're like, actually, I'm going to take a breath.
Yeah.
I'm going to go, do I need to eat? Usually that's me.
Oh my God. Always, if I'm a little bit cranky, the people who love me, who are around me, is like, she either needs to have a sleep or she needs to eat.
Yeah.
And I eat healthy.
Yeah.
I eat really well to fuel my body, but sometimes I'm like, I just want McDonald's because it's my favorite restaurant in the entire world. Do you know what I mean? Because that's my soul. That's my inner child is actually like, I just need a little bit of junk food.
Yes, right now.
Because I just need to just feed my soul just like a little bit of like a treat.
Gosh. Sometimes Alison comes in now and he doesn't even, there's no talking anymore. He just bring a plate of food.
Literally,
that's the answer.
literally. Daron will come in and he will have a full plate of food. He goes, this is the peace offering. I'll leave this with you for a moment and I'll come back.
Like no eye contact.
Just take
like
it.
putting food into the cave. I'm just like going to be out here. Surely there's a meme of that.
Oh my
somewhere.
God, there absolutely. I'm sure there is. It's so funny, but it's true.
Yeah.
It's true because it's just, this is when you like fall into complete burnout. It's when you don't listen to what it is that your body is asking for. It's like, okay, well, what do you actually need? What do you need me to do?
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
So good. Now, when we're talking about covering, you've had a lot of experience in not only covering, but covering leads.
Yeah.
What's your process and maybe, tools or tips that you would give, for yourself, first of all, and then maybe to people listening, what advice you would give?
I think for me, the thing that has really worked in my favor and that has really actually only helped me do the job successfully is learning the material as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
And because a lot of the time I'm on stage, I'll be cast as an on-stage ensemble member and I would cover. So I would just watch everything that I possibly could, given like my priority is to learn my own track, but it is literally to be like, I don't know what old mate's doing on the side, but
I'm here.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, and this comes with challenges because you are already like needing all of your focus to be on learning the job that you have at hand, but it just means it requires you to then go home and dedicate
another amount of time.
I need 1 hour because I need to learn X amount of scenes, because once I've done that, I'm going to go, because tomorrow I got to learn X amount of scenes, or I got to learn X amount of songs. And that's the job that you sign up for. And I feel like when I was growing up, that's how I was taught, because we would do a lot of like triple casting and things like that when we were at uni, because we were so many people, whatever. And I feel like what I hear in the workplace, and especially in the past few years, I hear a lot of, we'll get to a point where they'll teach it to me. And I am telling you, every person that I have met that I know who is covering, I say, I'm telling you right now, you do not want to wait.
You don't want to wait for that.
You don't want to wait for that.
Because that's when you get thrown on.
Yeah, that's when you get thrown on. You don't know half the scenes.
Yeah.
And you got to be in front of thousands of people.
It's, I don't know, what in the gods of covering and swinging, every time I've gone on for something, it's been the one that I've not gone on, or I've said, I'm never going to go on for that, or, you know, always. I mean, covering always happens a lot of the time at the end of the week. So if you're already on stage doing your track, you're getting to that silly Sunday what we've been talking about, and then you get a little text, oh, now you're going to be not only in the show, but you're going to be running the show as the lead. Congrats.
Because actually, I know we only just opened last week, and I know you haven't finished learning the show, but you're actually going to lead the whole company.
Yes.
And you're playing the title role. You're the character you're playing is the title of the show. So there is so much value in, like, I think I don't know what show I was on, but I would spend my lunch breaks. I'd give myself half an hour for lunch. And then I'd come back into the rehearsal room and I'd have the floor to myself. No one was there. And I'd revise any blocking that I had just experienced, like, you know, from afar, doing my thing. And I'd be like, okay, I'm just going to feel what that feels like. Anything that you can do to try and alleviate the stress of not knowing what it actually is, I would always recommend to do it. Yeah. Don't leave it. And it's a lot of work, but a lot of the foundations and the groundwork that you do, if you do it all at the start, you will find that you will be okay when it comes to the point in time when you actually have to practice it. But that is the one biggest tip that I have.
Just get it
done.
Get it done as soon as you can.
Things are changing constantly,
don't wait for someone
but you just
to
learn it as it goes. Don't
No.
wait for someone to teach it to you. Start now.
Start now. I love it. Just a little recap on the episode today. We've been talking about lean in, even just waking up in the morning and just saying, what do I need? Maybe it's food. Maybe if you're lucky enough to have a partner to just shovel your food under the door, leave you alone. Love it. And I love it. I loved our discussion today.
Thank you so much.
It's just been awesome having you on here. Thank you everyone for listening. And we hope to have Kim back in very, very soon. Yay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Amazing. Thank you everyone for joining today's episode on the Dive podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please make sure you subscribe, rate, and leave a review on your preferred platform. As always, if you found this podcast episode to resonate with you and maybe someone that you know, share it with them. Share the love. Stay connected with us on social media, finding the handle at thedive.com.au. And for additional content, I've added in a free resource, which today is a sound healing to reconnect to your true power and help you come home as yourself and let your character stay at work. You can find this free resource on our website at www.thedive.com.au. And if you have any questions, you can also email us at info@thedive.com.au as well. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and go for it. See you on the next episode.